I'm Matthew Martin. I'm the general manager of the bottle depots in Victoria, British Columbia. We have 3 locations, one on Quadra, one on Crane Street, and one of our Glanford location. The bottle depot is a recycler. We collect refundable bottles here in Victoria, British Columbia. We're one of the largest bottle depots in British Columbia, specifically trying to reduce the amount of refundable containers that are ending up in landfills. So here in British Columbia, we have 2 stewards that handle all the refundable beverage containers. So we act as a medium between the customer and the stewards to collect the containers. So customers will bring their used containers in here, get their deposit back, 10-cent deposit back, and then we return all that product either to BDL or to Encore. You can also bring them back to anywhere that sells refundable beverage containers should be taking refundable beverage containers back. Well, we separate everything here. So everything gets separated. You saw our sorting machine downstairs running. So that sorts so accurately, it reads barcodes. So as it passes through that light window, it reads the barcode, separates the commodities, and the bottle depots produce the purest product leaving here. It's all sorted, it's nice and clean. We densify aluminum here at our depot. So we collect all the beer from everywhere, South Island basically, okay, everywhere from Port Renfrew out to the islands to really almost to Duncan. We collect all the beer cans. We bring them in here and we densify them. So we condense them into small biscuits. What that does, it really saves space, okay? So not only does it cheaper to ship, okay, but it saves on greenhouse gases. So it's about a 20-to-1 compaction ratio. So instead of us sending 20 trucks out of here, we're only sending 1. A win on both sides, both from a efficiency standpoint from the depot and from a impact of greenhouse gases. The most common product is aluminum, okay, or small plastic. So water bottle size plastic. It's nice, it's light, it's easy to carry. The tougher product is certainly glass. It's very heavy, right? If you get more than about, let's say 40 or 50 bottles, it's going to rip through a plastic bag. And then the big product, like the milk containers, the big 4-liter jugs, also because they're so large, they take up space in your bag. It's less room for cans. So that's the product that's a challenge for groups like the Diverters. It's more cumbersome. One of the biggest things we do is we have a Charity of the Month program here. So every month we have a new charity, and we have 3 donation bins out front of all of our depots that you can drop off your refundable beverage containers to. And we take all those refunds and we give all of them to the Charity of the Month. So we raised, I think we did $124,000 last year in total funds raised. So it's great for the community, it's great for the charities, and it's great for us for raising awareness standpoint. We do things like we provide area maps, or the blue bin maps. So the diverters or anybody who's looking to collect can take their cell phone down, scan a QR code at our depots, and those depots will tell you where all the blue bins are being collected on what days. So the diverters or any of the collectors can go out and pull from the blue bins any product. Right? So then they bring that in here, and that drives income for them. The blue bin program would be the city provided one of the little blue bins that are put on the side of the street. Okay, it's what we're talking about specifically for people to go picking. But there's a lot of commercial properties as well that have blue bins out there that are collected and often consolidated into the same sort of collection process as the blue bin system. And the real difference between anybody who's doing the blue box program, really the biggest loss there too to the community is that you're losing out the deposit. Right, so if it comes back to the bottle depots, all those deposits that are being purchased here in Victoria or the Greater Victoria area are all being returned back to the community. Okay, whether that's you who get your deposit back, whether that's the diverters who are getting that back, whether it's the charities here we have that we support here in Victoria. From a common goal perspective, it's all about recovery rates. Right, we want to maximize as much as possible and drive as much volume. And the win in them in driving volume is obviously bigger refunds when it's all said and done. And if we work together to make that happen, that's a win for everybody, right? Everybody wants to see less product going in landfills. That's a win for everybody, right? So we're saving the environment. I have a great job in some respects because I get to save the environment and I get to give people money. Let's say it's pretty good. When it's all said and done, everybody's trying to get by and make a living, right? And helping each other out and do that, that's what we do. Seeing the impact is the really cool part. Like seeing someone, bring in their bag of cans, walk away with 20 bucks, and knowing they're gonna get some food, they're gonna get something, right? Everybody is just trying to do their best. If you're out there collecting cans and you're hitting the bins and everything else, that's a hard job, right? It's a long job. It's often done at night. It's long nights, and then you got to come into the depots and sort and tidy, and yeah, it's a tough job. I appreciate how much it is, and again, if we have some customers who leave with a couple $100, they worked really hard all night, and that's pretty rewarding to see. Right? So I think the key for the whole community, okay, is keep the deposit funds in the community as much as possible, okay? And so whether that's through the diverters, whether that's saving your bottles and giving them to a diverter, whether that's dropping them off at the charity bins, whether that's letting, if you see someone who's picking through your bottles out front or your cans out front, don't worry about it, let them do it, okay? Because that's keeping that funds in the community, and that's ensuring that's used for good, that's said and done. So whether it's charity, whether it's for the diverters, it's a win, right? So I think that's the key. Just, seeing product go into blue bins, that's a refundable beverage container. I look at the charities and the diverters and all those groups that could use those funds, and I think that's a missed opportunity, okay? I think there's lots of things that should go in the recycling bins. Put your cardboard in there, put your non-refundables in there, absolutely, it's a great program, but keep your refundables out. This is about keeping funds and supporting your community. Keep the funds in the community, support a charity. If you don't I run, potentially the biggest bottle depot in British Columbia, and admittedly, I don't want to go sort my bottles, okay? No problem. So I have a charity bin, I'll give them the charity bins. If I'm down at Queen Street, I'll give them some down at Queen Street. Those are all, or if it's a diverter down there, a picker, and I say, here, would you like these bottles? And away they go, okay? And for me, it's less impact for the, $15, $1.50 or whatever I've got of cans, but for them, it has a big impact. And I think that's the key. So whether you're a charity or a diverter or a binner, there's some big impact in that little bit. Little things can do a lot.
My name is Rhiannon Moore, and I'm the Zero Waste Outreach Coordinator for the City of Victoria. Zero Waste Victoria is a plan, it's a strategy, and that plan is to reduce waste by 50% by 2040. Yeah, we do a diversity of things. There's your basics, so there's curbside collection that we help to facilitate and improve. And then we also help to educate residents and businesses on waste reduction. Another thing our team does is we develop policies and initiatives. So you might be familiar with the checkout bag bylaw. So that's to reduce plastic bags in our community as well as paper bags. We also put on different events to help educate the public. So we have our circular economy speaker series, and then just getting out in the community doing different outreach things and targeting different types of waste. The most notable one is the checkout bag bylaw that was started in 2018, and it's really emphasized reuse in our community. You often just see people now, it's the norm, just walking into a grocery store with their reusable bags in their hands. And we're trying to expand that not only to bags, but also to cups and containers, and even educating people on clothing reuse and repair. Another thing that we do is we target construction and demolition waste. So we have a deconstruction and demolition waste bylaw, so that reduce waste in the construction and demolition industry, kind of salvage that wood that could be reused and reincorporated back into the community. So one innovative strategy that we've used is actually incorporating sensors with cameras in our litter bins. We call them zero waste stations. Essentially, there's the general landfill bin, and then we have compost and recycling options. And what we do is we actually have sensors inside of them to show us how full they might be so that we can be more efficient in our collection. And then we can also see how much contamination there is. So are items ending up in the wrong bin? So is an apple core ending up in the recycling bin? Are recyclables ending up in the organics green bin? And then once we have that data, we can kind of look at ways that we can target those areas of that community or improve our education or maybe placement of these bins. There are a lot of challenges in the waste world, I would say. One of our biggest challenges is that there's continuously more products and different types of packaging that's entering the market that we continue to try to address and reduce. So especially single-use items that we see as takeout materials. So what we've seen, especially after the pandemic, is many food service businesses have continued to operate on the takeout model. And so there's so many different packaging options when it comes to takeout. And there's new packaging options all the time that businesses are using. And it's difficult because some of these packaging options are marketed as green or compostable, and residents just don't know where to put certain things or it's improperly labeled. One thing we're really struggling with right now is compostable plastic, just because they seem to be incompatible with both the compost stream as well as the recycling stream. And it also costs businesses often more money to have those products, and it's confusing to residents too. So we're seeing that as a really challenging material. Another thing in the city of Victoria is we drink a lot of coffee, and so coffee cups, we see a lot of coffee cups in the waste stream. Some people put them in the recycling, which is great, but some people also put them in the compost, but they're plastic lined. So I think that people are confused about where to put those items as well. Single-use takeout materials is a really big challenge for us and just for the community in general. One thing that we've done to address that is we developed this sustainable takeout guide. So instead of it being like this long report being like, these are all of our challenges, it really clearly outlines, if you are doing takeout as a business, here's the best option. Like the best option we always say is reuse. And then here's the next best option. Like this is fairly sustainable. We can handle this in our recycling or compost streams. And then these are the options or the materials to avoid. So that's things like styrofoam and compostable plastic. Those are geared towards businesses. However, we do find that a lot of residents are keen on this resource just to learn what packaging is more sustainable than others and just learning the basics of that. So we developed it for businesses, but we found that residents are also just as keen to read it, which is really exciting. I think one way that people can get involved is super simple. Waste comes in many different forms, and there are so many little things that you can kind of tweak in your daily life or your business operation to kind of start to reduce those things. Maybe you're a resident doing a renovation project. Is there ways you can reduce the waste in that project? So one thing I would recommend is just start to learn about it. And then the second thing I would recommend is just do a waste audit in your own home or your own business and see what type of waste you're creating. Is it mostly food waste and food scraps? Can you reduce that? Can you make sure that you're diverting it in a proper way and it's ending up in the compost stream? Or are there opportunities for reuse in your businesses? Do you operate a cafe? Are you getting your staff to ask, is it for here to go? And are you providing mugs instead of like a single-use coffee cup? Are you able to provide plates? And then even like attending events. One thing that I do is I bring this little reusable container with me so that when I go to a food truck, they'll just pop it in my reusable container. And most places are really happy to do that because packaging does cost money for businesses. So that's one less thing that they need to provide. Ultimately, when you think of everything, all the different things as waste, it really brings back that solution of reduction and reuse across all materials. Education and outreach play a huge role in waste diversion and waste reduction. I would say that a lot of consumers and residents often don't think they have a lot of power in reducing waste. I'm just one person or I'm just one business. There's so much waste. What impact am I going to do? But I think with proper education and resources, you realize that there's a lot you can do, and if more and more people start doing it, it really creates those ripples you need in a community.
My name is Marianne Alto, and I am currently the Mayor of Victoria. My job is to make sure people know what's going on, but also to know what their part is in each of those initiatives, because this isn't about the city saying you shall. This is about the city saying you could and you should. So here's how. And we can work with you to make that easier. So I think that's probably the most important part of the mayor's office. My background is incredibly eclectic. It's interesting, I've worked many times on what you would call the outside of convention, but also on the inside of convention where I currently sit, obviously. And both are useful. They just have to be timed appropriately. The trappings of convention are a really important mechanic to advance the rights of people who are not accepted in that conventional space. So that's been kind of fundamental for me. In any social structure like we live in here, fortunately for the most part in Canada, you really see that although the trappings of everything seem relatively equal, when you start to explore a little bit further, you see that it's quite unequal. And organizations, I think, like the Diverters, create a really interesting and relatively accessible path for folks who want to contribute to and participate in convention, but remain somewhat on the outside. Programs like the Diverters try and do that in different ways for individuals, where you allow a way in, but not so far in that you're required to give up who you are. From a different perspective, though, the actual work, it's small but it's an important component of the city's commitment to a different way of dealing with waste. And I think the interesting thing about it is that it does focus on individual capacity. Fundamentally, I think the ability to provide an opportunity for an individual to be part of that really big, complicated approach to the world is really unique. On the face of it, Victoria seems like a fairly comfortable, fairly middle class, fairly routine, conventional kind of city. If you look a bit closer, it has a lot of diversity. It has a lot of challenges. It has a lot of change in its socioeconomic makeup. And so when you start looking more closely at that, an organization like this gives you the way for us to be more inclusive of a different range of individuals who don't necessarily have what you might consider conventional skills. There needs to be ways for people to retain their autonomy and be who they are while still interacting with conventional systems. And sometimes it's a door opening that they go through completely and then they find a different way. Or sometimes it's just a door that opens once in a while. And having that adaptability, I think, is important. Canada is huge in Victoria, and it's a very well-attended, massively attended actually. Pre-COVID, we had pushing 100,000 people downtown. Post-COVID, it's been about half that, but it's growing. And when you have that kind of a crowd, suddenly, for a very specific period of time, obviously the regular infrastructure of waste recovery, waste management, street cleaning, everything, is completely overwhelmed. And so being able to have the extra resources of an organization like the Diverters just adds that complement to it in a way which makes it faster, more efficient. On the one hand, it's good because they're actually doing stuff. On the other hand, it's really good because it actually is seen and visible, so it reminds other people what they can do too. So it's that sense of, I shouldn't just let this guy over here pick up, the returnables. I could have done that myself, so why did I not do that? People are marginalized, I think, primarily out of circumstance often, and it's not easy to live in a situation where the bulk of the world assumes there's something at fault. And so being able to create a program like this, you can see what a difference it makes. And it's not complicated. Right? It's not complex, it's not difficult to understand. You have real people doing real work in real neighborhoods that make a real difference. When you see programs like this that do so much with so little, it's great because this is the type of program that is really good value for money. And it's good value for money not just in its output from its ability to deal with recyclables, renewables, reusables, but from an ability to contribute to the social good in the sense that it provides economic support, but also social support. And that type of opportunity to ensure that everyone who is a Victorian is considered a Victorian. Diversity, I think, is what is building the city into something really memorable. Very eclectic, very diverse, and hopefully very welcoming. I think the city as a whole, as we evolve as a city, because Victoria's been a big town for a long time, and it's a city now, and it has city issues, and they're happening really fast. As we look at all of that reimagination, of that sort of intentional transformation of what a city is like, what it looks like, what it feels like for the residents, that has to include a much more aggressive approach to everything environmental. The phrase I use often is intentional transformation. And that has to be a focus not just on the obvious things, infrastructure, roads, services, but on the slightly less obvious but equally, if not more important things about how the smaller decisions influence all of that. So as we change our approach to what's recyclable, what's renewable, what's reusable, as we change our expectations for individual and collective behavior, that in and of itself will transform the city. The more you can show that diversion works, the more a corporation like the city can prove to its sometimes reluctant public that it's worthwhile. And that although it may cost, that cost is an investment in the future. I mean, we often think about the very big concept, the policy-driven, fundamental change in how we do things. Important, yes. But when you see the kind of achievable human-sized examples, then you see that, yes, big picture important, but also the components of that big picture are equally important, and sometimes more important because of the fact that other people actually can relate to that more easily. It's hard to relate to the, multi-million-dollar process that goes around and collects your trash. At the same time, it's super easy to relate to the 1 or 2 or 3 people who you see walking along picking up stuff. And when you interact with them, it has influence in that humanity. And it has influence as an example, but it also reminds us about the potential of individuals and their capacity to make change, and how that's, again, a really important component of the bigger picture. Truly, every small thing helps. And very often I think people get very frustrated because they see these things as being overwhelming and large, and they don't know how to do anything. So it's impossible to imagine how you can change. Maybe you help a little bit in prevention or response, depending, when you get involved with organizations like this. Because, the environment is everything. If we don't do something, it's pretty bleak. But at the same time, the world is made up of people. One of the things I talked about during my campaign for mayor was environmental sustainability, one neighborhood at a time. And when you break that down, one neighborhood has to do it one person at a time. And so an organization like Diverters gives you that mechanic to do that. Look at a program like this and to be able to see it again as a way to make a difference on a small scale, but that has significant impact. So great, so now what? So now what are you gonna do? I mean, there's lots of practical ways forward that you could grow a program like this or duplicate it, and you could start very small and grow very big and adapt it to whatever your own community looks like and whatever it needs, and to its climate, to its sizes, to its economy, to its people and its interest. And so you kind of go, well, why wouldn't you? Because we've shown that it works with a fairly minimal amount of support, frankly, from the municipal government. The public awareness has only been positive. So again, when you're looking for all of the different pieces that go into creating actual change and what you imagine your community can look like and how it can be experienced in the future, why wouldn't you pick everything? And this is certainly one that's easy to pick. It's aspirational, which is great. It's really important. You have to have aspirations. But, I mean, hope is not a plan, but every plan needs hope.